I stood at the edge of Silverwood Heights, watchful and anxious, my heart racing against the cool breeze that rustled through the old oak leaves. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the town, painting everything in thick strokes of an orange blush. It was a normal end to a normal day, yet everything felt sharply different to me. I could almost hear the whispers of the past echoing through the streets. It left me feeling hollow yet brimming with anticipation. They thought they had won. They had no idea that beneath the surface I was preparing my plans, waiting for the opportune moment. Just give it time, I muttered to myself, running my fingers across the smooth wood of my day planner, the chalky white pages holding sketches of my thoughts and my fury. I glanced back at my house, an unassuming two-story with faded blue paint. It wasn't much, just the way I wanted it, really. I had no intention of drawing attention. No one would suspect that I was quietly planning my revenge against the people who had turned my life upside down. I heard voices drifting from the alley behind me, disrupting my thoughts. I turned to see a group of teenagers, laughing and being loud as they passed, their faces illuminated with that careless joy of youthful innocence. "Did you see his face when he got called out?" one guy said, slapping another on the back. I thought he was gonna cry. Laughter exploded, and for a moment I felt the fury coursing through my veins, mixing dangerously with a bitter nostalgia. I remembered being only a few years younger, reveling in moments just like that, completely unbothered by what lay ahead. "Hey, good times in Silverwood, huh?" I called out, trying to mask the tension crawling under my skin. The group turned to look at me, their laughter faltering for just a second as their eyes met mine. "Yeah, totally," a girl replied, breaking into a hesitant smile. "You still live in that old blue house down the street?" I nodded, forcing a smile beyond the escalating irritation. "Guess I'm not going anywhere." One boy shrugged and guided the group onward as they resumed their chatter, leaving me at the edge of my thoughts. The crispness of the autumn air seemed to deepen the nostalgia, but I felt a coldness creeping in as I revisited the darkest corners of my memory. My pulse quickened when my mind wandered to Benjamin Sparks, the man who had ruined me, utterly destroyed my life in one caustic swoop. Just over 3 months ago I had it all, a steady job, plans to expand my business, and the promise of a new love. But then Benjamin appeared, his deceptive charm dulling everyone's senses around him, weaving webs of treachery that ensnared me. I had been naive, not seeing the signs until it was too late. He was cunning and persuasive, just like rusted armor gleaming in the sunlight, hiding its decay beneath the surface. "You can trust me, Derek, it's a win-win," he had said, flashing one of those infectious smiles that made it impossible to think clearly, to see beyond the immediate promise of success. I had believed him. Huge mistake. "Stupid, stupid boy," I murmured under my breath, stepping inside the hollow shell of my home, allowing the door to close behind me with a dull thud. The interior was dim, the dusty air thick with memories of a bygone era when my life hadn't been overtaken by clouds of regret and anger. I could still see the photographs of family and friends on the mantel, faded memories mocking me with their insistent cheerfulness. "You could swear they are smiling at you," I thought bitterly. I moved to the kitchen, the chipped tiles sticky beneath my feet, a million thoughts buzzing around like trapped flies. My phone buzzed on the counter, pulling me out of my mental labyrinth. It was a text from my sister, Rachel. "Hey, you coming to the family dinner tomorrow? Mom's making that lasagna you love." I typed back quickly, keeping my responses short to minimize confrontation. "Yeah, I'll be there. What time?" I added a smiley face to soften the edges, as much for her sake as mine. A few minutes later my phone pinged back, 6 o'clock, Mom will be so happy, and maybe you will even surprise her with your smile. My smile faded as my fingers hovered over the glass screen. Did I even want to go? The last family dinner had been overwhelming, filled with concerned looks and questions about my well-being. The sympathy felt suffocating, like an old blanket that had been applied too snugly. "I just don't want to talk about it," I had told them before I retreated into the shadows. "Tell her I am fine." I returned to the craggy couch in the living room, feeling the soft fabric against my skin. It was a sanctuary, yet also a reminder of everything I had lost. My phone buzzed again. I saw Rachel's name flash on the screen once more. "Just arrived, Derek. They want to see you. I want to see you." My heart sank. I took a deep breath. She meant well, but there was so much paranoia bubbling under the surface. Conversations always turned to Benjamin, their golden boy, the prodigy who had stolen everything important to me. I could already hear the words of praise echoing in my thoughts. "You should be more like Ben, such a great kid, such potential." I scoffed and let the phone slip from my grip. The screen cracked against the hardwood floor as it landed, mirroring my state of mind. "Perfect, just perfect," I muttered, sweeping up the pieces with frustration. I loved Rachel, but my mind spun with uncertainty about how I could venture back into the heart of that family setting where every conversation came with loaded subtext. I pulled myself up and moved to the window, peering outside. The waning sunlight settled behind the rows of houses lining the street. White picket fences bordered manicured lawns, and I could see colors exploding from the trees, a kaleidoscope of reds and yellows whispering that summer was already gone. "Everything changes," I whispered to myself almost inaudibly. It had been mere weeks since Benjamin had walked into my life with promises, weeks since he had tossed away my trust like the discarded fast food wrappers littering the ground outside. He cannot just sweep in and take everything while I sit back and watch. I thought, the rage tightening in my chest like a vice, squeezing until I could barely breathe. Just then, I heard a knock on the door. The sound startled me, pulling me out of my swirling thoughts. Who could that be? I pondered, a sense of unease settling in my bones. I walked cautiously towards the door, hesitating as I peered through the peephole. "Okay, Derek, brace yourself," I mumbled as I reached for the doorknob and swung the door open. There stood a tall figure, an old friend from my past, Jack. "Hey, Derek, it's been ages," he smiled, his handsome features marred only by the hint of worry in his eyes. We had drifted apart over the years, but now he stood here with a welcoming confidence that wrapped around me like a warm blanket, even if it was a little worn around the edges. "Jack, what are you doing here?" I exclaimed, almost breathless with surprise. "I figured I would check in on you, heard about how things went down with Benjamin." There it was, just like I expected. I could feel the tenacious grip of anger tightening again, growing from its slumber. "Yeah, well, you know how it is, life moves on." I forced a chuckle, hoping he would take it at face value. "I came by to see if you want to grab a drink, maybe talk," he offered, shifting on his feet slightly, his eyes glimmering with sincerity. "I could really use some good company." "I appreciate that, Jack, but right now I just need some time alone," I said, the lie shredding through my conscience. I felt guilty, like I was pushing him away, but I just could not bear to relive the events of the past few months. "Derek, look, I know things are tough. You don't have to pretend everything is fine. You and I have known each other long enough to drop the act," he insisted, a wise smile playing on his lips as he stepped closer. "I just want to make sure you are okay," that made me falter. "I will be fine," I insisted, but the words felt impotent. "I just need to figure things out." Jack frowned, a knowing look flashing between us. "You still think you can take everything lying down?" Those words landed like boulders, dulling my insides. I felt a swell of defensive rage pushing against his well-meaning concern. "Look, I get it. You think I am just going to roll over, let Ben walk all over me and come back asking for mercy, right?" My chest tightened, and I felt the fire in my cheeks. Jack raised his hands, diffusing the brewing storm. "No, not at all. I just want to help, Derek. You do not have to handle this entirely alone." His kindness snared me a little, drawing me closer to the edge. I wanted to scream, to shout out all my frustrations, to tell him how desperately itching for revenge I felt, but I held back, biting my tongue instead. "I appreciate it really, but I am just tired, Jack. I will figure it out. You should go enjoy your evening," I said quietly while failing to contain the disappointment drumming in my heart. He studied me for a long moment, earnest and unyielding, before sloping his shoulders in resignation. "Okay, man. Just know that I am here if you change your mind." I watched him walk away, feeling the weight of the door between us like a chasm. I turned back into my house, shutting out the world in an effort to reclaim the internal chaos that threatened to burst forth. Alone in the dimly lit room, I sank onto the couch once more, fury bubbling underneath my skin like molten lava. But today I felt the tight walls of my existence pressing against me, the anger and the sorrow melding into something deeper, something that demanded to be expressed. "I am going to make you pay, Benjamin. You took everything from me," I murmured, the promise heavy in the air around me, and I began to plot my course for vengeance, the fire illuminating my soul. Today was only the beginning. The sun hung low over Silverwood Heights, its rays filtering through the trees, painting the earth in shimmering golds and deep shadows. After Roger Collins had crushed my world 2 nights prior, I sat at the worn-out picnic table in the park where we used to hang out. The wood was still etched with our names, Derek and Roger, encircled by a heart carved before everything turned dark. I could almost hear the laughter we shared, the stupid jokes that filled the air like the sweet scent of fresh-cut grass. Those memories stung like a swarm of wasps. I looked down at my hands, fingers curling around the metal of my phone. Every notification seemed to taunt me. The world moved on. I was still stuck, replaying the moment when Roger betrayed me like a broken record. I could see his smirk, the way his eyes lit up with excitement as he delivered the news that shattered my trust. "I took the deal, Derek. I had to. It's a life-changing opportunity." His voice echoed in my mind, a cruel reminder of the friendship he tossed aside as easily as a used candy wrapper. "Derek," a voice called from a distance, and I turned to see Jenna striding toward me, a burst of energy in her step. Her long auburn hair caught the sunlight, reflecting hues of copper. Jenna was my sister, my confidant. She always seemed to know when I needed her most. "You okay?" asked, plopping down across from me. Her eyes, bright and wide, searched mine for answers. "I do not know, Jen. I do not know what I'm feeling." "What do you mean?" She leaned in, her voice softer now, the playful tone slipping away as if it had never been. "Can we skip the sugarcoating?" Roger made his choice. "He sold me out to the company I built," I said, trying to keep my voice steady though it trembled. "Is he worth this?" She gestured vaguely, her expression a mix of concern and disappointment. "Is he worth your time and energy?" I had no answer. I could feel the anger bubbling beneath my surface like a dormant volcano ready to explode. "Maybe not, but it feels personal, you know." I took a deep breath, trying to ground myself in the present, but my thoughts spiraled into dark territories. "He was my best friend. This wasn't just business for me. We were supposed to do this together." "He betrayed you," Jenna reminded me. "Like, seriously. He didn't just take an opportunity, he took advantage of your friendship. There is a big difference here. You should think about what to do next." I could see the fire in her eyes, and it flared my curiosity. "What do you mean?" "Revenge," she said simply, leaning back, crossing her arms. "It is time to make him understand what he lost." The word hung in the air, thick and heavy like smoke. I felt the familiar sting of betrayal morphing into something more potent, something darker. What does that even look like, Jen? Get back at him, Derek. Think about how much he cost you. Your friendship was everything you built, and he shattered that. Do not let him walk away scot-free. I pondered Jenna's words, envisioning Roger's smug face. I could almost hear his laughter ringing in my ears. What do you suggest? Burn down his project? She chuckled softly. No, but maybe play a little game of your own. You have connections, skills. Why not use them? Like what? I asked, intrigued. Well, she said, her gaze drifting off as she started to plot. Do you still have those contacts at the Tech Expo? You could get some intel, maybe even turn people against him. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I could, I mused, nodding slowly. Roger acted like he was so much better than me, but he only got where he is due to my hard work. If I could expose the truth, Jenna leaned forward, excitement streaming from her. Now you are thinking. You have enough whispers and shadows to turn the tide. All you need is a little proof that his success is built on sand. I chuckled darkly. And you are sure this will make me feel better? It will make you feel something, she replied, sincerity echoing in her voice. The determination in her eyes was infectious, nudging at my restless spirit. The park around us faded, and a chaotic mix of thoughts and possibilities began to churn in my mind like a tempest. I had lost sleep over Roger's betrayal, pacing my room, replaying those moments of camaraderie. What a fool I was to imagine our bond was unbreakable. All along, our shared dreams felt like an illusion. I hurriedly pushed the thoughts aside, focusing instead on Jenna. So how do I do it? Start by gathering whispers. You have your reputation, people speak to you. Ask questions, find where the cracks in Roger's facade lie. I tapped my fingers against the table rhythmically as I sparked to life with new ideas. You are right, I can reach out to some old contacts and see what they know. If Roger has messed up anywhere, it is only a matter of time before someone slips up. That's the spirit, she exclaimed, her eyes glistening with motivation. But you have to be cautious. This has to be done smartly. You cannot let him suspect a thing. I nodded, determination swelling in my chest, but I was also apprehensive. What if I get caught? If I push too hard, I could face repercussions. Then do not push too hard, Derek, she said matter-of-factly. This isn't a movie. You can be subtle, strategic. Every story has layers. Unravel them one at a time. She leaned back, her expression softer now. I know this feels overwhelming, but you are stronger than you think. Just take it step by step. Step by step. I repeated it like a mantra, letting it sink into my thoughts. The air shimmered with a thick silence, and the weight of the moment hung heavily around us. Suddenly, Jenna broke the quiet. Derek, do you really think revenge will make you feel better? What if what? I snapped, surprised at my own intensity. What if I let him walk away to enjoy my hard work? What if I let him act like he did nothing wrong? No, I cannot do that. She lifted her hands defensively. I get it, I just want you to think about the possibility that you might lose yourself in this. Revenge can consume you, you might lose the good in you. I felt her words tugging at my heartstrings, but the rage was like a fever that flared in my chest. I just want to expose him for what he truly is. And I get that, Jenna said, her tone softening, but do not lose yourself along the way, just be you, the rest will follow. I glanced up at her. I want to find that balance, but I am tired of feeling powerless in this scenario. I am ready to fight back. The sun was beginning to set now, casting brilliant shades of orange and pink across the sky. As the shadows grew longer, I recognized that the battle inside me mirrored the fading daylight. The rage was becoming more defined. The path forward was clearer now, but doubt loomed like a shadow that danced just out of reach. The clanging sounds of children laughing and playing nearby brought me back. Their innocent joy was a stark contrast to the storm brewing deep within me, but I couldn't let it subdue my instincts. The laughter felt like a reminder of whatever it was I was prepared to take back. Okay, so tomorrow I'll reach out to 2 or 3 people just to stir the pot, and I'll see what I can shake loose. My voice sounded firmer now, and with it, a resolve that churned deep within me gave me strength. That is a start, Jenna said lightly, a hint of pride seeping into her tone. Let's see how long before Roger wobbles under the weight of those lies. I will look for the truth hiding beneath his grand illusions, I said almost to myself. The dusk wrapped around us like a cozy blanket, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me. Even as the storm brewed, I understood that revenge was a complicated dance that required careful steps. I could already picture the light fading from Roger's eyes as the truth unveiled itself. He will not know what hit him. Exactly, Jenna said, smiling. Now let's get out of here. You have work to do, and it is best not to linger too long with those thoughts in play. They can eat you alive if you stay too still. I nodded and rose from the table, my heart still drumming a rhythm of anticipation in my chest. Jenna held my arm, leading me away from the echoes of the past and into a future filled with tentative hope and plans for sweet revenge. As night fell over Silverwood Heights, I felt my resolve harden like cement, rock solid and unwavering. Roger would pay for underestimating me, and I would finally reclaim what was mine. The sun had barely peeked through the curtain when I awoke, its tentative rays managing to seep into the cracks of my rundown apartment in Silverwood Heights. The familiar creaks of the floor beneath me were comforting, yet today they felt more like chains binding me to my past. My heart raced, pounding against my chest as I slowly sifted through the memories flooding my mind, the betrayal, the humiliation, the unrelenting thirst for revenge that had propelled me from victim to avenger. My gaze drifted to the small mirror hanging on the wall across from my bed. It reflected a man whose face was worn from grief and anger, yet determined eyes stared back, igniting a flicker of resolve within me. I was no longer just Derek Malone, a name whispered in the shadows of Silverwood Heights. I was a force to be reckoned with. I could feel the heaviness of the past and the lightness of the present battling for dominance inside me. Today, I would take a step further into the dark plan I had conceived. My fingers brushed across the clutter of my nightstand, a mix of old takeout menus, an empty whiskey bottle, and the crumpled note I had received days ago. The note brought a smirk to my face. It had arrived anonymously, but I recognized the sharpness of the words, sharp enough to cut through any doubts I had left. The words echoed in my mind as if they had been burned into my brain. You know what needs to be done. The key is in the details. I had spent the night mapping my course of action, leaning against my wall, caffeine pulsing through my veins with every bitter sip I had taken from the lukewarm coffee in my favorite stained mug. As I threw on a wrinkled shirt and a pair of jeans, the adrenaline began to course through my veins. I remembered the faces of those who had wronged me, particularly Chris Donovan, the man whose actions had triggered this spiral of despair. He had not just taken from me, he had corrupted my very existence and filled it with doubt and anger. He was my primary target, and I would not rest until he understood the pain he had inflicted. With my resolve growing stronger, I swiftly made my way to the dingy kitchen. The flickering fluorescent light overhead buzzed, enhancing the atmosphere of intent that surrounded me. I poured myself another cup of coffee, its bitter aroma filling the small space, and I let it bring me back to my focus. It was time to assemble the pieces of my plan like a puzzle I had to solve. With the warmth of the mug in my hands, I breathed in deeply, inhaling the promise of what was to come. After finishing my coffee, I reached for my flip phone, an old model that had seen better days. I scrolled through my contacts and paused at a name I hadn't seen in a while, Mia. She had once been my confidant, my partner in crime before life pulled us along separate paths. I debated for a moment, would she still be willing to help me now that I was made of darkness and shadows? A brief moment passed before I hit the call button, my heart racing as the ringtone echoed through the silence of my kitchen. On the second ring, her familiar voice filled my ears and I was transported back to brighter days. "Derek, is that you?" she asked, the surprise evident in her tone. "Yeah, it's me, Mia," I responded, trying to keep my voice steady despite the nervousness knotting in my stomach. "I need to talk." "Okay, what's going on? You sound different." "I have a plan," I stated matter-of-factly, feeling the weight of my intentions press heavily on my chest. "A plan for revenge." A brief silence fell over the line before she spoke again, her voice lower, more serious. "Revenge? Derek, you know that usually leads to more pain, right?" I could picture her now, brow furrowed, concern radiating from her. "I need you to trust me." "What do you need?" she finally asked, surrendering. "I know you still have connections in the area where Chris works at the car dealership. I need information on his schedule, anything I can use to my advantage." "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" she pressed, genuine worry dripping from her words. "You have no idea how many sleepless nights I have spent thinking about this," I replied, frustration edging into my tone. "I have to see him pay for what he did to me, to my life. I thought you would understand." "I do, but it's dangerous, Derek. You are not thinking straight," she said softly, as if trying to reach the part of me that was still rational. "What if he doesn't take this lightly? What if you push him too far?" "That's the point," I said, my voice rising. "He needs to feel the fear I felt. He needs to understand that this will not go unpunished." I heard a deep sigh from her end, and I knew I was pushing her boundaries. It felt like I was dragging her back into a storm she had tried to escape. "Okay, I will see what I can find out, but promise me you will be careful," she finally said, her voice laced with resignation. "I will, I promise." As we hung up, I was left alone with my thoughts again. I stared out the grimy window, watching the world wake up outside, while I felt the chaos brewing inside me that only intensified. Today would be the day I took another step. I needed to make quick preparations, so I grabbed my backpack and stuffed it with the essentials: a notebook, pens, my trusty flashlight, and a few other odds and ends. I could feel the energy buzzing within me as I stepped outside. The air was thick with humidity, causing beads of sweat to accumulate on my brow the moment I stepped into the bustling streets of Silverwood Heights. People hurried past without glancing my way, immersed in their own lives, unaware of the plot that swirled in my mind. I navigated through the throng, each glance at familiar faces from my past filling me with a renewed sense of purpose. There was my old high school friend, Rebecca, chatting animatedly with someone about the latest gossip. There was Ethan, who had once stood beside Chris, laughing and oblivious to my heartache. I deliberately turned away, squaring my shoulders, pushing down the resentment that bubbled to the surface. This was not about them, this was about Chris. I needed to focus. My footsteps echoed off the pavement as I made my way to the cafe that served as the hub of local chatter and news, the kind of place where secrets unfolded over steaming cups of coffee. As I entered, the smell of fresh pastries filled the air, but I had no appetite. I spotted the perfect table in the corner, close enough to overhear conversations without being noticed. I sat and ordered a plain black coffee, the bitter taste a comforting reminder of my determination. I could hear snippets of conversations around me, talk of mundane work dramas, gossip, and the occasional laugh, but I was lost in my thoughts, piecing together the next part of my revenge. Suddenly, I noticed a couple of familiar faces that made my heart race. Chris was there, sitting at the table next to mine, his cocky grin plastered across his face as he laughed with a couple of his cronies from the dealership. The rage within me surged, fire igniting where there had only been ash moments before. "Look who it is," Chris said, nudging his friend and nodding in my direction. "Derek the Ghost, is he still wandering these streets?" His voice was mocking, and I clenched my fists beneath the table, trying to suppress the fire building inside me. "I heard he's been living in the basement of that rundown place. Rumor has it he's got nothing left." Their laughter echoed around me, slicing through the quiet resolve I had maintained so far. I felt small, but beneath that rush of vulnerability was an avalanche of fury swelling like a tide inside me. I considered my options. What would it feel like to confront him right now? To spill all my pent-up emotions, but that was not the plan. I couldn't just react, I had to be calculated to remain one step ahead of him. I turned my head slightly, ensuring my expression was neutral, a mask of calm, while my heart raced as if it wanted to escape my chest. I could hear Chris' voice ripple through the cafe, the way he commanded attention, as if he owned the place, as if he owned me and my history. So what's he doing now, still sulking? I bit down on my lip, feeling tears prickle at the corners of my eyes, not from sadness or weakness, but from the frustration of my own impotence. I was tired of being the underdog, but I would not falter today. I pulled out my notebook, flipping to a fresh page, jotting down every detail I could observe. Chris's movements, his body language, the people he surrounded himself with. These were things I could use, leverage for the future. There was power in knowledge, and I was about to become an expert in the art of manipulation. As I continued writing, I felt my anger simmering beneath my skin, hot and electric. Each letter I penned, each secret I dissected, brought me closer to feeling whole again. With each glance at Chris, I saw a man who thought he could escape the consequences of his actions. I was becoming acutely aware that revenge was far more than a whim, more than just a flicker of a thought. It was a commitment, a journey forged through fire. My resolve strengthened each time their laughter reached my ears, reminding me that this was not just about revenge, it was about restoring my own shattered spirit. Chris leaned back in his chair, arms crossed smugly as he continued to boast about his latest car sales. I felt a surge of disgust at his arrogance. I imagined the moment when he would no longer sit above me, but instead find himself beneath the weight of his own guilt. My pen paused momentarily as I recalled Mia's warning. She had tried to reach out to me as I was spiraling down this dark path, urging me to reconsider. But there was no looking back now. I came to a decision. I needed to show him that I was far from the frail ghost he thought I was. Oh, I would rise from the ashes he helped create, stronger and bolder than before. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, when the door chimed behind me and a familiar silhouette stepped into the cafe. It was Mia, her wavy hair cascading over her shoulders as she scanned the room. The moment she spotted me, a wave of relief washed over her face as she made her way to me. "Hey," she greeted, sliding into the seat across from me. "I have some news." "Did you find anything?" I asked, eager and impatient. "Yeah, actually," she said, leaning in as if she were about to share a secret. "I was able to speak to someone at the dealership. Chris has a big meeting later this week. It's supposed to be important for his career." My heart raced at the thought of the opportunity. "What day?" I pressed, my pulse quickening. "It's on Friday. They are launching a new line of cars. He's really counting on it to get promoted. He talked about it a lot." The gears in my mind started turning rapidly. "Perfect, that's perfect," I exclaimed, my voice slightly louder than I intended. She shot me a warning look. "Easy, Derek. Whatever you are planning, make sure it is the right step. I don't want you to get hurt or to hurt anyone else." I noted the worry etched on her face, the way she fidgeted with her hands, and I felt a pang of guilt for dragging her into my mess. "You won't have to worry. I'll handle it all," I assured her, swallowing the heat gathering in my throat. "But I should do this alone. You have done enough by gathering information." "I just don't want to see you spiral down again," she murmured, her tone softening. "You're my friend, Derek. You matter more than this revenge." I met her gaze, searching for any signs of misunderstanding, but all I saw was genuine concern. "And that is why I need to do this. If I don't, then I will never be free." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what lay ahead pressing heavily upon us. The laughter and noise of the cafe faded into the background as I was engulfed in the gravity of my plans. Mia placed a gentle hand atop my own. "Just don't forget who you are, okay? You are more than this." I nodded, appreciating her tight grip on my reality, a tether to remind me I was human beneath it all. As we parted, I felt the murmur of determination shifting within me, ready to embrace the uncertainty of what lay ahead. In my mind, the clock began to tick down to Friday, every passing second fueling the fury and fire within. I left the cafe with my heart pounding, ready to draw the lines of my fate in a world where revenge would reign supreme. As the first light of dawn crept over Silverwood Heights, bathing everything in a soft, golden hue, I stood at my kitchen window, staring out at the quiet street. My coffee mug was warm in my hands, the steam curling up like wisps of hope, but all it did was remind me of the turmoil within. The sun was a beautiful sight, yet it was a stark contrast to the darkness that had settled in my heart. It felt like a new beginning in some ways, but for me it was just another day of waiting. My plan was set and the pieces of my revenge were slowly falling into place, but I still had to deal with the aftermath of last night. conversation I had with Ava haunted me like a ghost, and as I replayed our words in my mind, I felt a twist of guilt wrapped tightly around my chest. Derek, are you sure about this? She had asked, her eyes wide with fear and concern. There was a time I would have melted at that look, but now it only fueled my anger. Her hesitation only confirmed my resolve. I have to do this, Ava. They took everything from me, I had insisted, my voice trembling with pent-up fury. They destroyed my life. And hurting them back will make it better, she challenged. I could see the hurt in her gaze as she fought not just for me but for the man I used to be. But there were things she didn't understand. She lacked the fire that drove the dark determination I now possessed. It won't just make it better, I had replied, my tone heavy with emotion. It will make them understand the pain they inflicted on us. I remembered her shaking her head, the shine of her tears reflecting the morning light. Derek, revenge is a dangerous game, and I don't want you to lose everything you have left. That statement had stung deeper than any physical blow ever could. It was a reminder that perhaps I was already lost. I swallowed hard, pushing those thoughts aside. Today I had a meeting with Keith, an old friend turned unreliable partner. Keith was entrenched in this web of deceit. He was the key. Without him, I would flounder like a fish out of water. As I slipped into a crisp blue shirt and dark jeans, I caught my reflection in the mirror. My dark hair was tousled and a stubble shadow danced across my jaw. I looked haggard, weary from nights spent awake pondering my plans. But there was a hardened resolve in my eyes, a glimmer of something darker flickered at the corners, a promise of retribution. The drive to the hangout, a diner not far from my apartment, smelled of old oil and excitement. As the familiar neon sign flickered to life, sending vibrant blues and reds bouncing off the glass, the weight of anticipation settled in my stomach. I spotted Keith inside. His untamed brown hair and constant 5 o'clock shadow made him easy to recognize from a distance. He was nursing a cup of coffee, staring vacantly into space, and for a moment I hesitated. What did I really need from him? I took a deep breath, pushing open the door. The bell jingled, announcing my arrival, and I felt the eyes in the diner shift towards me, curious and critical. You look like you fought a ghost, Keith said as I slid into the booth opposite him. He smirked slightly, but I could see the worry behind his facade. I was not the only one burdened by what lay ahead. I feel like one too, I admitted, my voice lower than I had intended. You ready to talk? He raised an eyebrow, the casual air falling away. I know why you called me here, Derek. You want to go after them, don't you? Yes. The word was heavier than it should have been, like a stone sinking in water. I've planned everything. That's dangerous. We both know they wouldn't hesitate to hurt you, Keith said, his tone cautious. They'll be expecting someone like me to react. I need to use that. I could feel the adrenaline start to pulse through my veins, electrifying my thoughts. I want them to underestimate me, I continued, leaning in closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. What's the plan? He leaned back, weighing his words carefully, his eyes darting around the diner as if testing for prying ears. You need to use their own mistakes against them. They're not as careful as they think they are. My heart raced. What do you mean? You remember the party they threw last month? You also remember how they bragged about their plans? They've been careless, Derek. They've given you the tools already. You're talking about the incriminating photos? He nodded. Yeah, and the way they flaunted their connections to people who could help them cover up their dirt. That arrogance is their downfall. I felt excitement rise within me, and with it came clarity. So we leaked the photos, but how do I get my hands on those? Keith rubbed his chin thoughtfully, contemplatively weighing options that swirled in his thoughts. Find a way to make them underestimate you. They think you're out of the picture, they'll let their guard down. What do you have in mind? He leaned forward, eyes brightening with the thrill of the plan forming. There's an upcoming gathering. I have an old contact who can get us in. We plant someone to snag those photos right from under their noses. The wheels in my head started turning. I have to be careful. If I mess this up, there won't be a second chance. It will work, trust me. Just play the part of the good little ex-victim, he said, his tone playful yet serious. You have to convince them that you're done with the game. I could see the outline of the plan form in my mind, and though part of me quaked with fear, another part buzzed with exhilaration. Okay, you're right, they've treated me like dirt. It's time I changed the narrative. Keith studied me for a moment, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on the air between us. I could see the hesitation flickering in his eyes. I will be there. Just know that if anything goes south, it could bring down everything, he said, his voice lowered. I met his gaze, steady and unwavering. I know. It was a pact made under the harsh fluorescent lights of the hangout, a deal filled with unspoken fears and hopes, but the excitement was intoxicating. Each heartbeat felt like a drum heralding my return, an anthem of revenge. I finished my coffee quickly, the hot liquid igniting my blood with determination. I have to go, I said, standing up and leaving cash on the table, the crinkling bills a promise that I would not return to this life without resolution. As I walked out, I felt a strange mix of liberation and heaviness, like the weight of my past was finally lifting, replaced with the hard edge of ambition. The sun was higher now, illuminating a world that felt more vibrant and yet more tainted at the same time. I had but a few days before the gathering, and I knew preparations would be essential. In the days that followed, I shifted into high gear, blending in with mundane life, going through my old routines while secretly scheming. I spoke with people from the community who had once been acquaintances and reached out to those still willing to listen. You seem different, Derek, one of them commented, a childhood friend I ran into at the grocery store. I've been through some stuff, I said, offering a half smile that barely touched my eyes. Well, whatever it is, it's shaping you into a survivor. The words stung, but they didn't deter me. I took it as a compliment, a reflection of my change. Navigating this facade was exhausting, but with the deadline looming, I felt the thrill of the chase. Tommy, you need to show me where the photos are, I whispered to my former acquaintance. He was seated on a park bench, the sunlight dappling between the leaves of the old oak tree. We were surrounded by children laughing, a scene that once brought me joy, now only served as a backdrop to my growing fury. I can't just put myself in danger, Derek, he replied, glancing over his shoulder nervously. I get it, but if they find out you knew and said nothing, your life won't be worth living, I pressed, refusing to back down. We're in this together if you care to admit it. He hesitated, uncertain. Those guys play hard and dirty, I mean, the words tumbled slowly, haltingly. That's why I need you, just tell me where I can find them. The more time we waste, the more dangerous it becomes for everyone. All right, I have a contact who has seen the photos. The relief in his voice was palpable, and as he spoke, I could see the tension in his shoulders start to ease. But you don't know how deep you're getting into this. I nodded, fully aware of the stakes. I have to do this, for me and for everything they took. Fine, meet me tomorrow evening. As we parted ways, the clouds rolled in like shadows, and I felt an odd thrill ignite in the pit of my stomach. There was a reckoning coming, and I was ready to face it head-on, burning with the desire for retribution that was now coursing through my veins. By the time the day of the gathering arrived, everything surged towards an inevitable point. As I surveyed my attire in the mirror, a simple black blazer that fit snugly over my frame, I took a moment to calm my racing heart. My eyes were steely, determined like someone who had rediscovered a sense of purpose. I felt invigorated, the air crackling with possibilities, and I needed to channel that energy into the night ahead. Each movement was deliberate as I suited up, tapping into my hidden strengths even as the past loomed behind me, a haunting shadow urging me to stumble. With a swift departure, I made my way to the venue, and the chill of the night wind helped to sharpen my focus. I had no intention of losing myself in doubt. Only forward, onward, and sharp as a knife. As I approached the large building adorned with festive lights, laughter spilled from the open doors, an ironic reminder of the lightness of the occasion. I pushed through the crowd, my heart pounding like the beat of a war drum. I would play my part, a visitor banished, now returned for a reckoning. Each moment felt charged with potential, the air thick with unspoken words. However, I knew the battle wasn't with the gathered crowd, it was with myself, the remnants of the man I once was, buried beneath the weight of vengeance. Derek, I turned at the sound of an unexpected voice. Nate, one of their closest allies, ambled toward me, his grin wide and unfaltering. I didn't expect to see you here. There was an air of disbelief between us, a shared history that sparked unwanted memories. I'm just here to have a good time, I replied, forcing a lighter tone and trying to blend in. You hurt yourself, friend, he laughed lightly. Join us, come on, we can toast to better days. I wanted to spit in his face, to spit all the venom I held within, but instead I plastered a smile on my face. Of course, wouldn't miss it. I felt their eyes weighing me, probing for weaknesses, searching for the despair they had caused. Every laugh was a dagger, every smile a betrayal. Let's see how well you do at pretending, Derek, I thought, but maintained my careful exterior. One wrong move could unravel everything. The questions poured like wine from the glasses they raised, and I navigated their quips and jests, smiling through their mockery like a seasoned actor. Beneath their jovial exterior, I could feel the tension, an undercurrent of doubt as my past self began to clash with every proud word they flung at me. I waited, biding my time, watching as Nate moved through the crowd, drawing in his followers. I overheard snippets of conversation that resonated through the laughter. It was such a blast. We really got away with it. Echoed in a chorus that lined my insides with molten rage. The night spun slowly, and I felt myself becoming invisible as I searched for that elusive photo evidence. I was almost ready to give up when I spotted a familiar face in the crowd. Tommy leaning against a wall, eyes darting around nervously. I approached him, keeping my expression neutral, waiting to see how the plan had progressed. Did you find it? I whispered urgently as his eyes met mine. He hesitated, eyes dark with worry. I managed to get a lead, they're safe for now, but I can't get too close without being seen. Derek, this is dangerous. I know, I snapped, catching the attention of a passing group, forcing myself to smile softly again. I won't lose my chance at justice, do you hear me? He nodded slowly. I have a location, I can't be with you, but you need to take action now. The urgency washed over me as he delivered the details. Trust no one, keep your head down. The clamor from the party began to fade into the background as adrenaline surged in me like a tidal wave, sweeping everything else aside. I will, I promised, feeling the old fire ignite. This will end tonight. As I turned back to face the crowd, a surge of energy coursed through me. The time for doubt was past. I would not only take control of my life, but I would also drag them down with me into the abyss, leaving no stone unturned. I stood outside the lavish Silverwood Heights mansion, the winter wind biting at my cheeks as I clutched the invitation in my hand like a lifeline. The grand entrance looked more imposing than I'd imagined, with its high arched doors and elegant columns draped in shimmering lights. Tonight was the night. The night I had waited for what felt like an eternity. I could still feel the sting of betrayal coursing through my veins, a bitter reminder of everything that had led me here. Just a few days ago, I had felt helpless, trapped in the shadows of my own life, resigned to the fact that I had let them win. But not anymore. I could not let them continue to wear the crowns of my defeat. This was my stage now, and I was ready to take center. The soft murmur of laughter and chatter floated through the air as guests mingled, dressed in their finest attire. The scent of expensive perfumes and freshly popped champagne wafted towards me, almost overwhelming. There were moments when I doubted my plan, where the weight of fear crept in, but tonight I was sure. Tonight was about reclaiming what was mine. I took a deep breath, summoning the resolve I had built over the past months. This was it, a grand launch of sorts. Derek, is that you? The voice sliced through the crowd like a knife, and I turned to face Leela, the woman who had been both my greatest friend and my greatest betrayal. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, but I noticed an undercurrent of confusion. She had no idea what I was about to do. You made it. I thought you weren't going to come. Of course, I had to see the grand spectacle you all created, I replied, forcing a smile as easy as a mask. This place looks enchanting. My sarcasm was buried behind a thin layer of charm. Leela was stunning, her hair cascading in a perfect wave over her shoulder, her dress hugging her figure in all the right places. Yet there was something painfully ironic about her beauty, the kind that made you want to both admire and despise her all at once. We had shared laughter and secrets, our friendship built on inside jokes and midnight confessions, yet her betrayal felt like poison in my veins. You know, it all means a lot to Rob, she said, her voice laced with sincerity. Tonight is his night. Rob, I echoed, bitterness slipping into my tone. Is he the one who double-crossed me, or was that you? I couldn't hold back the accusation as it slipped from my lips. Leela's expression faltered, her smile hanging by a thread. Derek, don't save it, I cut her off, my heart pounding. You think you can just walk back into my life like nothing happened? That betrayal was colossal, Leela. I took a step closer, lowering my voice as the world around us faded. You knew how much those contracts meant to me. I had no choice, she argued, her hands gesturing emphatically. Rob made me do it, you know how he can be. Don't make excuses for him, I shot back, my eyes narrowing. You chose the darker path, you chose fame and glitter over loyalty and friendship. Derek, please, she pleaded, her voice wavering. Can we talk about this later? This is not the time. Is this not the perfect time? I countered, my anger surging. I could feel others around us glancing in our direction, their curious eyes taking in the scene. I needed to remind them of my presence, of my rightful place among them. I was not a forgotten narrative. I was the main character in this story. I came here to show everyone what they had overlooked. Leela's face paled as she realized I was serious about whatever game plan I had devised. Please be careful, Derek. The way you're talking right now, don't worry about me, I replied, cutting her off with a wave of my hand. Worry about yourself. With that, I turned my back on her, stepping deeper into the heart of the party, the reveals of my plans dancing on the edge of my mind like winter shadows. Every corner of the room resonated with chatter, the sound blending into a symphony of superficial relationships, layers of deception wrapping around each person like an expensive scarf. But I was more focused on the center of it all. Rob Henley, the architect of my demise, stood like a king on his throne, accepting compliments from sycophants with a smirk that made my skin crawl. He was wrapped in a tailored suit so perfectly pressed it could cut glass, and his eyes sparkled like diamonds as he relished the attention. Rob, I called out, my voice cutting through the din. He turned, his expression shifting from surprise to simmering irritation. Derek Malone, as I live and breathe, he replied with a forced laugh. To what do we owe the pleasure? I thought it was time to clear the air. The last time we spoke I had some lingering questions. I stepped toward him, crowding his space just enough to make him uncomfortable. His smug grin faltered for a heartbeat. Questions? About what? I think we both have moved past that, he said smoothly, but I could see the tension in his eyes. Have we? You bulldozed through my life, robbing me of opportunities, and you expect that I'll just walk away waving a friendly goodbye. No, Rob, I won't allow you to dismiss me like that. We both know what you did. Doing business is rough, Derek, he retorted, a hint of menace creeping into his tone. You have to learn to take things in stride. I thought you were wiser than this. Oh, trust me, I am, I said, swallowing back my rising fury. But I have a different form of wisdom now. One that doesn't shy away from justice. Justice? He laughed, a hollow sound filled with arrogance. Do you really think you're owed anything? I've created my empire, and you— He paused long enough for me to realize he was enjoying the moment. You're nothing but a footnote. No, Rob, you're mistaken. I could hear my heartbeat thrumming in my ears as the anger coursed through me, channeling everything I felt into words. I'm not the footnote, you are, and tonight you will see why. His brows furrowed, and for the first time I felt a flicker of fear emerge in his eyes. It was fleeting, but I savored it like a fine wine. You're playing a dangerous game, Derek. If you think you can just come in here and think— I interrupted, my confidence swelling. I don't have to think, Rob. I've already thought it all through. I've already set everything in place. I sensed the flurry of whispers and glances around us, more people taking notice of our confrontation, the tension palpable and deliciously intoxicating. Is that a threat? Rob's voice turned cold, his bravado recoiling under the weight of my words. No, that's a promise. I stepped back, letting the silence take over for a moment, letting the weight of my presence settle in the air. I could almost taste the anticipation. Let the night progress and you will see exactly what I mean. The crowd mingled around us, oblivious to the game being played right under their noses. I could see Leela now, her eyes wide with concern, but I felt no remorse. The price of betrayal had grown steep, and the thrill of revenge danced at my fingertips. As I turned away from Rob, emboldened and ready for what lay ahead, I caught sight of the drink stand, glistening with freshly poured flutes of sweet champagne. I sauntered over, keeping my head held high as I poured a glass, its bubbles rising like my own spirits, each pop a reminder of the plan that swirled in my mind like storm clouds gathering for a tempest. I could turn this gathering into my own festival of reckoning. Derek, a familiar voice rang out. Caleb Griffin, the financial analyst who had been part of Rob's close-knit circle, approached me, a half-drunk glass in hand. "You're looking sharp tonight. What's this I hear about you causing a ruckus?" Rob doesn't seem too pleased. I shrugged nonchalantly, swirling the champagne in my glass. "Just having a chat about business." "Business more like a storm brewing. I worry for you, man. You think you're a match for them?" Caleb's eyes darted over my shoulder as if checking for Rob's shadow. "Trust me," I said, locking eyes with him, feeling more grounded with every word. "This storm will wash away the nonsense Rob and Leela have created, you will see." An expression of concern washed over his face, but he nodded. "Just be careful," he said before weaving back into the crowd, leaving me to savor the moment alone. I took a sip of my drink, feeling the bubbles tingle as they hit my tongue, imagining how many sips Rob had taken over nights of feasting on my misfortune. This was not just a party, it was the dawn of retribution, and I was prepared to make waves. The room vibrated with laughter and music as I navigated through the crowd. I felt the thrill coursing through me. My plan was set in motion, and soon enough all eyes would be on me. There was a quiet commotion building at the back of my mind, urging me to act faster to set things in motion. The atmosphere was electric, heavy with tension that I craved. As I neared the center of the room again, I cleared my throat against the looming presence of the crowd, my voice rising above the ambient din. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention." The murmurs died down as heads turned toward me, some bemused, others inquisitive. I narrowed my gaze on Rob, who stood with a scowl, clearly irked that I had the audacity to speak up. "I know we're here to celebrate success, but I believe it is time for a different story, a story that needs to be told." "What does he think he is doing?" I heard Caleb mutter from somewhere in the crowd. "Be quiet." Rob hissed, trying to regain control through sheer intimidation, but I was already too far gone. "You see, in this world of glitz and glamour, we often forget the cost of our progress, the people left in the dust for the sake of ambition." I took a breath, letting my words hang in the air as they sunk into their minds. The people who were betrayed. I stared directly into Rob's eyes, feeling the tension snap like a tight wire. "I am Derek Malone," I continued, "and once upon a time this company was mine. You roamed sheltered in my shadow while plotting to take what was rightfully mine." I glanced around as the crowd shifted, their expressions a mix of shock and curiosity. The whispers quickened, nudging at Rob's carefully crafted image. "You may not be familiar with the name," I paused for a calculated effect, "but I had built something real, something beautiful. And it was taken from me not through fair competition but through deceit and betrayal." "Enough," Rob thundered, trying to stamp out the fire I was igniting. "Enough," I echoed, my voice stronger, fueled by the vulnerability burning behind Rob's angry facade. "You will hear me out, because tonight I am here to reclaim my narrative, the one you tried to snuff out. I have the evidence in my hands." Gasps erupted from the guests, and I smiled inwardly. The thrill of confrontation was sweet like the champagne on my tongue, and it felt as if I could no longer hold back the flood. All it takes is one spark to ignite a revolution. I pulled out my phone, sending a command to the projector hidden in the venue, and moments later, the blank wall behind me lit up with the very documents that Rob thought were buried: contract negotiations, proof of fraud, and the emails that hinted at Leela's involvement, wrapped in flowing sentences that evaded responsibility but painted her betrayal in bold brushstrokes. "What you see before you is a mere glimpse of the truth," I declared, allowing the photographs to melt into focus on the wall. "Stop this!" Rob yelled, losing his composure. It was a glorious sight to witness, the mask of control slipping from his face like butter falling off a hot knife. I felt the weight of the crowd's eyes upon me, the shifts in their stances, the hushed murmurs of disbelief that turned the atmosphere electric. "You thought I would remain silent, sheltered in the nook of despair, but no longer. The world deserves to know how you operate, Rob. You are not the shining beacon of success you portray yourself to be. You're just another wannabe king with a stolen throne." Finally, I caught Leela's eyes again, desperation etched into her features as she tried to plead with me to tug me away from this moment that had spiraled out of her control. "Derek, please stop." She was drowning, her panicked breaths crashing against my resolve. "You had your chance, Leela. You sold your soul, and tonight you will witness the weight of your choices. Everyone, please, this is all a misunderstanding." Rob shouted, his face flushed with a mixture of anger and panic. But the crowd's murmurs grew louder, my words igniting debate and speculation. I reveled in the chaos I had sparked, each crackle of tension filling me with purpose. Let this be a testament to how far ambition can blind a person, how greed can twist friendships into nothing more than stains on our history. This was never just business to me. This was my life. My heart poured into every piece of that foundation, and now I reclaim it. As the projector flickered through more slides, voices of disbelief rising like tides around me, I felt something shift inside. This was not only about revenge, it was a liberation, a reclamation of my story. I will not be the footnote in Rob Henley's manuscript. I am the author of my own destiny. And just like that, amidst the chaos and clamor, the line between victim and victor blurred, my heart swelling with anticipation for what came next. Tonight, I was no longer chasing shadows. Instead, I carved out my place in the light. The party had transformed from a celebration into my stage of revelation, and as the crowd rallied with shouts and gasps, I found myself enjoying the unfolding drama, a smile creeping across my lips. "Let the world see the truth about you all," I proclaimed. "This is just the beginning, and I am far from finished." And with those final words, I prepared to embrace the storm I had conjured, ready to surf the waves of chaos and claim my rightful season of answers. Beyond the lights and laughter, I felt reborn, no longer the pawn in their game, but the player daring to shift the pieces. The night was far from over, and I was poised to take back what was mine.